everyone, my name's Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you so much for joining me today for Flosstube number 88. And it's been 2 weeks since my last Flosstube, although I have released other videos. So I have a lot to show you. I didn't think I had actually done very much until I got all my whips together to, show you what I've been doing. And I think I've touched all of them. So that's exciting. So I look forward to showing that to you. I have the giveaway winners for my new temperature birds pattern. I have a little bit of haul. I have some happy mail. I have a little bit of history based on my haul. I mean, I wouldn't even really call it a haul. I just made some purchases. And then, I have a fully finished object. I have a fully finished stitchy object, my friends. Fully finished stitchy object. But before we get to any of that, I want to welcome my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me on my crafty and artistic adventures. And welcome back to everyone who's been hanging out with me for however long you've been with me. It's been great to get to know you in the comments here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me in 2 different places, and I'll put them both right here. My main account is Dr_Christy, and that's where I post pictures of my stitching and my dog and my life and work and outfits of the day and stuff like that. And I post there usually once a day, sometimes twice, sometimes every other day, but I'm fairly regular there. And the other place is the Spoolery, and that is an account that is dedicated to my love of vintage wooden spools and vintage sewing paraphernalia. And so that's where I post pictures of my vintage wooden spools and other vintage sewing paraphernalia. It's been a week. And I have actually been doing stuff over there. So if you follow me over there, you will actually see things, which is kind of exciting because it had been pretty defunct for several months. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts, and including weaving and vintage wooden spools and history and the history of all of those things. So if any of that is interesting to you and you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. I shifted my camera a little bit to see if that helps with like the glare on my lights. But now I'm like really discombobulated because I'm like not quite looking in the right spot. So if I seem to be like looking weird, it's because you've moved. You should have considered the effect it would have on me before you all like moved to the right. So I have 3 fully finished objects. 2 of them are weaving, 1 of them is stitching. I'm going to show you the weavings first. I have nothing on my loom right now, so I don't have to show you that. But I have signed up for a local arts festival called the Burns Bottom Arts Festival, which is in the town I live in. And the proceeds support our local art council, so I'm willing to do that. But I wanted to do some Mississippi weaving. So this is an outline of the state of Mississippi, which is where I live. And blue is the color of my school, my university. Their colors are blue and white and sometimes yellow, but blue and white. And so I decided to do a Mississippi wall hanging. So that's the first one. But the local big football team, American football team, college football team, is at Mississippi State, which is about 25 miles away. And their colors are maroon and white. So I did a maroon and white one. And I like the simplicity of this, but it shows every mistake. You would think that just doing a plain weave would actually be easier than doing all the fancy swoopy things like on the blue one. It's not. So I'm going to do a maroon one that is more swoopy, and I'm going to do a blue one that's, I don't know that I'm going to do plain weave. I might do something else on it, but I'm going to do a blue one that's sort of more plain. And this arts festival is happening on October 1st, Saturday, October 1st. And it's kind of coinciding with a whole, like a 5K run. It's right after our farmer's market. There's going to be music at the local beer garden. So like, there's like a whole lot of stuff happening. So I'm hoping that I can make some profit off of this. And in that vein, I also made another fully finished object, is I made a bunch of pairs of earrings out of vintage paper spools. These paper spools are from the American Thread Company. And the American Thread Company merged with Coates and Clark in, I think, 91. So these are probably from the 70s or 80s, but they're just paper, and I just put them on a chain, and they're super simple. These don't have any markings on them, these blue ones, but the other ones say ATC for the American Thread Company. So I know that they're relatively old, and the box these came in was unopened, and that also said ATC. So it has to be at least from the 80s, possibly from the 70s. It is cotton and on little paper bobbins. So I'm really pleased with these. And my goal is to have items at different prices. And I think I talked about this. So I want to have super cheap items, which I'm working on. These are kind of like medium cheap items. Medium items, which are the wooden spool earrings that I showed you last time, where I cut off the end of the wooden spool and put resin on the back and use those. And then I have some full silk spools with like beads and stuff, and those are more expensive. So that's kind of my goal. Okay. Stitchy, fully finished object. I have a Stitchy FFO. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I posted that I was finishing this. I had washed and blocked it last night, so I posted it on Instagram, but it is now framed. It's my sea monster sampler. So this is one of my designs. It is one of my favorite cross stitches that I've ever designed. It just makes me so happy. It's so whimsical and ridiculous. And this is part of my series of cross stitch patterns that is inspired by and patterned off of a late 16th century series of lace patterns. So lace patterns are grids that are, you know, one or two, like one color or like two shades, right? And so I have made a series of these kinds of patterns out of these lace patterns. They're all 3 colors essentially. So all of these patterns that I made are 3 colors. And this comes from multiple different patterns, and I kind of combined them in this way. So like the whale, this is what a medieval whale looked like. This is what medieval people believe whales looked like. So these medieval whales, each comes from a different pattern. The ship comes from a different pattern. It all comes from a different pattern. But the reason why I decided to make it a sampler is because I found this amazing alphabet. And I love this alphabet. And this alphabet has 3 A's. And I don't know why. I don't know why it has 3 A's. But I was at my local thrift store, I would say a year ago. And I found, it's actually in a bolt over there, I found this roll of lightweight polyester fabric that was, I don't know when it's from. I'm going to make curtains out of it for my office and my house. And it was sort of French botanicals and insects and stuff. And it had an alphabet with 3 A's. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yes, please. I am buying this. So that is my fully finished object. However, bummer, I don't usually wash my pieces. Small ones like this, I'm not stitching on them long enough to need to wash them. And because I stitch in hand, I'm kind of holding them in various places. So I think when you stitch in a Q-snap, you hold it like in the same spot and it gets kind of grimy. I don't do that because I stitch in hand. But I washed this one because, as those of you who've been with me for a while know, I grid my cross stitch with a friction pen. And then I iron it out and, I'm good to go. Well, in this case, I'm not good to go. So I mentioned this before, but my friend Ilanka had a pattern, a piece that she had stitched, and she was having trouble getting her friction felt tipped marker out of it. And so she tried all sorts of different things. And pride goeth before the fall, as they say. I was like, well, I use just the ballpoint pens and I've never had a problem. Well, my friends, I had a problem. So it's fine for now, but I don't even know if you'll be able to see it on camera. I don't think you can even see it. So you can't even see it on camera. I only notice it like right here because I'm looking for it. but I can see the little orange lines. So this is going to go on my wall in my dining room as is. No one else will notice, but I'm going to put it in the back of my mind to stitch this piece again. And I have a more exciting fabric stash now, so maybe it can be on a different color fabric. Who knows? I do love this color scheme. I think I'm going to keep the color scheme. So I need to find a fabric that fits this color scheme. So this is my Aussie Monster Sampler fully finished object that is good enough for now. And when I have a moment and I kind of feel like I want to start something new, I might pull out a new sheet of fabric and restitch this. I don't remember what fabric this is on, and I can't tell. I would say it's probably on a 16 or an 18 count Aida that I got at Michael's or Joann in a tube. Nothing special, and it's using the 3 called for DMC flosses. And as I said, I have other kind of similar feel patterns like this. I have Harpy and Dragon, I have Red Deer, and I have Purple Murple. So I will have already put them up. So if you're interested in any of these patterns, you can find them in my Etsy shop down below. And I do have an idea for some more patterns like this that are slightly more ridiculous, because Elizabethan lace patterns were ridiculous. They were ridiculous. So I guess they're not actually Elizabethan because they're not from England, but they're Elizabethan time period, right? They're early modern. And how great is this frame for this piece? It was way more expensive than I had planned on, which still isn't all. I mean, it was a $30 frame and I had a coupon, but it's still like more than I had planned on spending. But it was just too perfect. I mean, I think it literally looks like a ship wall, and I love it. So that's my fully finished object, and I think I've talked about it quite enough, but I haven't had a stitchy fully finished object in a very long time. So I have to, play that up. So let's talk about my whips. I'm going to start with my embroidery whip, and that is part of my ongoing Sleuths series, where I take my favorite literary / TV sleuths and stitch stylized portraits of them based on their television characters. And the current one I'm working on is Columbo. So I have finished his hair, which is, interestingly enough, looks just like Jessica Fletcher's hair. So I finished his hair. I've started on his jacket. And then I just have his hand, his collar, that's going to be white in there, and then his cigar. And I think his cigar is going to be in satin stitch. I'd like to do something in satin stitch, just like a fully filled in stitch, and I think it's going to be his cigar. And as always, I'm going to show you my other ones because I love them. This is a 6-part series. Columbo is 5 of 6. We have Sherlock Holmes, Jessica, the back of Jessica Fletcher. Let me turn her around. Jessica Fletcher. Poirot, the David Suchet version. And the Sherlock Holmes is the Jeremy Brett version. And finally, Miss Franny Fisher. And my final sleuth will be Miss Marple, the Joan Hickson version. And those are all being stitched on a white Essex linen, which is a cotton linen blend that I got from Fat Quarter Shop in a limited palette. And one of the things that I was kind of stalled on for Columbo was the color of his skin versus his jacket. And I had a similar problem with the skin versus hair of Jessica Fletcher. And the problem is that his jacket is kind of a taupey beige, and his skin, he's Italian American, is kind of a taupey beige. So what I've decided to do is, and I have, like I said, a limited color palette. I decided to do his jacket in Color and Cotton Peanut. And that is the taupe I've been using most. But when I had an issue with Jessica Fletcher's hair, I kind of went with a more pinky, strawberry, blondie kind of color, which was the Gentle Arts limited edition Stitchy Box exclusive Spring Flowers. It's this taupey one here, this peach one, which is showing up more kind of peach than it is in person. It's a little bit more tan in person. And so I was going to use Peanut for his skin and then find a darker brown for his jacket. But the Peanut is literally the same color as his jacket. So I've decided to go with the limited edition for his skin. It's not super pink. And when I was looking at the pictures of Peter Falk, he does actually have very rosy skin. So it has that kind of olivey Mediterranean undertone, but it's pretty rosy. So that's the plan. And I'm hoping to finish this soon so I can get started on Miss Marple. And they're all going to be framed in 8-inch hoops that I'm going to paint black. And they're going to go in my dining room with my Sea Monster sampler. That's my first whip. My second whip is my temperature piece for the year. And it is my temperature drinks shelf, which is going to look like this when it's done. And I usually stitch this on Sundays with my mom, because my mom's doing it too. And this was inspired by my mom and Chevis of Chevy Rails podcast, Chevy Rails Stuff, who both like a good cocktail. So I thought I would create a little cocktail bar shelf for them. And I am done with August. So I finished August yesterday, I think, and I'm really pleased with it. And now that I am, well, if you remember several months ago, I was working on all these browns. This was, I guess, June and July. And I'm like, oh, all the browns, they're ruining my rainbow. And then I thought, no, Christy, just relax, stop panicking. Not that I was panicking, but stop being grumpy about it. And wait until it gets cooler and like the orange colors come back and the yellows and then the greens and see what it looks like. And August was a great orange and yellow month. And I was right. The oranges surrounding the browns and the tans and the beiges, I feel kind of bring out those colors. And I like it. I like it a lot. Now, this is interesting. I did this decanter, and surrounding the decanter are two bright yellows. 77 degrees. I have not looked that up in Celsius. I will put it here. 77 degrees as a high in Mississippi in August is unheard of. Like, unheard of. And we've been, I mean, Rich has pulled out the spiced teas for our evening. We have our sort of winter ritual is to have a cup of tea, a cup of herbal tea every night at 8 p.m. But we don't do it in the summer because it's too hot. He whipped that out in early September. It is, I know it's fall places. I know it's autumn in a lot of places. It should not be autumn in Mississippi. It should not be autumn. It is cold. It's cool. I mean, like, I'm walking the dog in 60 degrees, and that doesn't usually happen until October. So we're having a very cool spell here in Mississippi, and it's showing in my pattern. And this is stitched on a navy blue 14 count Aida that I got from Joanne just in the tube in the called for DMC. If you're interested in stitching this with me, you can find it in the Etsy shop down below, along with my other temperature patterns, but you know, whatever. So yeah, I'm excited. Oh, and this is a hashtag, Stitch the Temp Sal. I'll put it right here. That was coined by Pam from Stitching the Land of Good Enough last year, I think, and I just use it for general temperature stitching. I piggybacked on it. I'm okay with that. And I used that last year too. It just seemed like a really good hashtag to continue using. That's my second whip. The third thing I've been working on is my anniversary piece, which was last week. I was totally going to have this done for my anniversary. It is The River by Modern Folk Embroidery. I got this in a Black Needle Society box, and I started it on New Year's Day, on January 1st of this year, and I worked on it. So I have most of the alphabet done, and I have almost all this little flower. Or do I have the whole flower? And I have this entire little flower. It's more obvious in person than on screen, but that's where I am. So this is all the alphabet. I have to finish up with the alphabet and the number. Oh, do I have numbers? I just have to finish up the numbers. So I have to finish up the numbers. It goes up to like 17 or something. Oh, that's over here. So it's like 6 through 14 I have to do. And then it has a row of flowers and other little motifs. And then I'm going to add a text box. Here, why don't I take the whole... Why don't I show you on the pattern what I'm doing? So I've done this flower here. And then in between this box and this box, I'm going to put a text box using these letters of our names and the wedding date. And then I will continue down as charted. So that is the plan for this. Yeah, so I've done this flower. So I have 2 deer and 2 flowers before I get to that point. And then, and also all these letters, all these numbers here. I stitch in hand sewing method right to left. So I always kind of start in the top right corner. Although I don't know why I don't start in the bottom right corner, because that would be so much easier for stitching. Whatever. For some reason, I always start in the top right, even though it'd be easier for me to start in the bottom right. It's fine. So this is being stitched on a, I think, 16 count white Aida that I have developed using Cyanotype method and some lace that my cousins gave us for our wedding. They gave us this beautiful box full of textiles and this lace was in it. And so I thought I would use it. And I'm stitching it using DeVere Yarns silk in Old Gold 72 weight. This is filament silk 72 weight. That's my work on that. And I dedicated, so my anniversary was on Monday, last Monday. And I spent, this was the only thing I stitched on that day. I thought if I'm not going to get it finished by that day, I will at least dedicate this to that day. And that's what I worked on. That is my third whip. And then my final whip is my HAED. My Heaven and Earth design, Lady and the Unicorn. This is what it's going to look like. If I can find a before picture from 2 weeks ago, I'll put that here. Because I don't think I have any excessive changes. So this is where I am now. And I think I'm at about 12.5%. I'm stitching this on 20 count ivory Aida 2/1. I like a full coverage in the called for DMC. And I'm stitching it using the cross country method. Essentially, the way I'm doing it is I'm choosing a motif or a section and I am grabbing a thread or two and stitching in. And my goal is to do 125 stitches a day because I want to finish this in 5 years. I am a bit behind. I'm probably about 5,000 stitches behind at this point. A little bit over a month and a half behind. But I think that that's okay. And so I think that I've been working on this section here. I think that this section here, the dark section, is much further along. You'll know better than me at the moment because you'll have hopefully seen the before picture. But I think that's really where I've been focusing my time. I think that's where I've been focusing my time. I know I have, well, I don't know. I don't know where else I've been stitching, but I know I've been stitching there. And I think I've been stitching in the dark colors up here a bit, or maybe down here a bit. I don't know. But you will have known, you will know. And this also has a hashtag. So I am stitching, I started this Heaven Earth design on my birthday in 2021. So December 2021, I started this. And my friend Jessica is an art historian. So I'm a medieval historian. She is an art historian who is also, I think she's also a medievalist. She does medieval art as her like research focus. And she said that if I started one of these, she would start one too. So she is doing, I think, Sight, which has a mirror where the woman's holding a mirror. And she came up with the hashtag party like it's $13.99. So if you're stitching anything medieval or medieval adjacent, use that hashtag, because I follow that hashtag and I keep forgetting to mention it so it doesn't get mentioned. But if you're doing something medieval or medieval adjacent, please, or fantasy, party like it's $13.99 Sal. I will have put it here. It should be here now. Those are my works in progress. So those are my works in progress, and that's pretty exciting. I feel like, oh, and then I also did my secret stitching, which I can't show you because it's a secret. So that's 5 whips I've been working on in the past 2 weeks, and I've actually made some progress, and I fully finished something, and I made 2 weavings, and I made some earrings. This is why I had to wait 2 weeks, because like I did a lot of that yesterday. I did a lot of that like Thursday, Friday, Saturday of this week. Yeah. Last week, my video was my release of my temperature birds pattern, which looks like this. And it is a high and low temperature pattern that is charted for 2023. Now, I plan on updating all of my 2022 charts, or all of my current temperature charts from 2021 and 2022 into 2023. I do it every year just to make it easier for people who want to buy them. And I will do that in the next couple of weeks. I also plan on having another temperature library with new knickknacks and a new kind of orientation of books. So if you're interested in stitching a temperature bookshelf of mine, there will be another option, hopefully the next month. That's my plan. I was hoping to have it done by October 1st, but we're halfway through September and I haven't started charting it yet. I've thought about it and I kind of know some knickknacks that I want, but I haven't actually charted it yet. A week ago, I released my temperature birds pattern, and apparently it already has a hashtag, so Michelle Bendy Stitchy was super excited about it. And so the hashtag is Chaos Burbs. I'll put that right here, hashtag Chaos Burbs. I don't know if it's Chaos Burbs Sal or just Chaos Burbs. And the reason is because I don't use ableist language, things like crazy or nuts, or at least I try my best not to. But I had to come up with some way of expressing how wild and chaotic this pattern is with all the colors. It is much less chaotic if you're only doing the high temperatures. But if you're doing the high and low temperatures, it is chaos. And so I have been basically saying that it's chaotic and chaos a lot. And so she decided that she's going to do the Chaos Burbs Sal. And Burb, B-I-R-B. So it's the Chaos Burb Sal. I'm just going to call it Chaos Burb Sal. I'll put a hashtag right here. So when you're stitching it next year, and I'm totally stitching this one, and I'm totally stitching it in the most chaotic way possible, that's what I'm going to use. And I think that's what others are going to use too. So thank you for coining the hashtag. And thank you all so much for being excited about it. Now, on to the giveaway. I'm lucky enough that I can afford to give patterns to my supporters when I design them. And so what I will do is if I'm going to do the YouTube random comment picker, I already have it kind of up, and I will, and if your name is called, oh God, it's like I've never done this before. If your name is called, if it comes up, then I just need you to contact me either on Instagram through private message, or on through email, christiescornercraft@gmail.com. Both of them are in the description box down below. And I just need your email address. I'm going to send you the PDFs. It's going to be a Pattern Keeper compatible PDF and a, ooh, that's, my air conditioner just turned off and it was very loud apparently, and just a printable colored PDF. So let's see. I asked you to say the word caw. Caw. Oh God, Tyra, you're so funny. So Tyra was like, I can only say that one. Like, I cannot say caw only once. I have said it at least twice. I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I was doing it a lot too. So let's get our comments. 33 comments. Thank you all so much for wanting to stitch this. That makes me so happy. And if you've already bought it, I know a lot of people already bought it. If you already bought the pattern, I'll give you a refund on Etsy. So don't worry about that. So let's start this puppy. And the winner is Christy Buck. Caw, so cute. Thank you, Christy. Great name, by the way. Christy, you are the winner of the pattern. And I think I'm going to give away two. I'm going to do another one just for fun. So we're going to, so Christy Buck, you're our first winner. And our second winner is Mums Albrecht. Mums Albrecht and Christy Buck, if you could please contact me on Instagram. Mums said, awesome to have the two-tone birds. I think I will send a cheap tweet and caw for all the birds here. Thank you so much. There are definitely all sorts of different birds on the pattern, which was part of why it's chaos, but that's how I like my temperature patterns. Like, I like my temperature patterns to be random. I like randomness. So Mums Albrecht and Christy Buck, please shoot me a message on Instagram or on email, and I will send that pattern out to you. I think all I have left are, I'm out of breath. That was very exciting. I get super excited when I like do random comment pickery things. I have Happy Mail, and then I have some purchases, and then I have some history I want to talk about. So I got this adorable package from my friend Terry. Thank you, Terry. And I need to thank you, like, I need to message you and thank you as well. But she sent me a very lovely card. She sent me a floss ring. This is going to go on my HAED because I've been saying that I need a floss ring on my HAED. And then she also sent me some Fiberlicious Yummy Fibers Philly Rain, which is super appropriate since I'm from outside of Philadelphia. And she sent me a pocket watch. I have been collecting broken pocket watches and watch pendants for a future art project, which I haven't started yet, but it's in the works. So thank you, Terry, so much. I am super excited. And it was seriously so thoughtful, so I appreciate you very much. And I did just realize that I never messaged you and thanked you, so I'm sorry. So I will message you and thank you, but I know that you watch, so thank you so much. I will put it to good use and try not to break it any more than it's already broken. One of the things that I'm really interested in when I talk about like vintage wooden spools is I'm really interested in a particular company. I'm interested in the Corticelli Silk Company, and it's sort of not subsidiaries. It merged throughout the early 20th century, but my friend gave me a 1899 home needlework magazine that was published by the Corticelli Company. And that kind of started my whole vintage wooden spool obsession. And then I was watching Jody at Trixie Tricycle, and right after I had gotten this, she had gotten some actual spools of thread from this company. And that just kind of sent me over the edge. That's where I started buying wooden spools. I wanted to make jewelry out of wooden spools. I wanted to do all these things with wooden spools. And it was really because of my friend Marianne and my friend Jody, right? So I've been slowly collecting these home needlework journals from the late 19th, early 20th century. And they come up on eBay sometimes, but sometimes they're really expensive. Anyway, I bought two. I bought two of them this past week for a project. I have the April 1905 Home Needlework magazine. And I have the October of 1904 Home Needlework magazine. I haven't had the chance to go through them yet. They are delicate. But I like the covers. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking the covers and scanning them. And I'm turning them into note cards. And I think I'm going to turn them into notebooks as well. For when I go to these art festivals. So I have kind of a cheaper thing to offer. So I got both of these. And I just really loved this. This one I liked. This one was nice. It was pretty inexpensive, which is why I got it. This one I paid a little bit more for because I love this cover. I don't know what it is about this cover that I love. I don't know why I was so drawn to this cover, but I love this cover. I love the gold color. I love how, there's color in her hoop that she's stitching from. I love the little lion head. I love her braids. I feel like it's a bit Art Deco, which I really like. I like Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau. I think it's Art Nouveau. I like that. I like the style of it. Yeah, so I'm really happy with it. So I bought this one after seeing this ad for Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. And the ad's in both of them, but I got this because I saw this ad, not realizing it was often in these books. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. So I'm going to read the ad to you. And it says, "The Mother's Mission. A great emperor once asked one of his noble subjects what would secure his country the first place among the nations of the earth. The nobleman's grand reply was, good mothers. Now, what constitutes a good mother? The answer is conclusive. She who, regarding the future welfare of her child, seeks every available means that may offer to promote a sound physical development, to the end that her offspring may not be deficient in any single faculty with which nature has endowed it. In infancy, there is no period which is more likely to affect the future disposition of the child than that of teething, producing as it does fretfulness, moroseness of mind, etc., which, if not checked, will manifest itself in after days. Use Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup." So Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup, I did some research because I'm like, this can't be good. It's an early 20th century soothing syrup for babies, which were notoriously dangerous. And this was one of the most dangerous. In fact, it was called the baby killer. You know that I'm a medieval historian, but I'm also really interested in the history of everyday things. So when I saw this ad, and I did a little bit of research, I was like, I need to dig deeper in this. I need to find out what's going on. And then I'm like, well, I obviously need to share it with you. My academic research is on medieval women and the law in France. But I also teach in other fields. And so I do research in things like the history of food, the history of medicine, history of epidemics, history of textiles, stuff like that. And I talk about a lot of these things in my classes. And as I said, when I saw the ad, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. Let's dig into this. So Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup was supposedly concocted in the mid-19th century by a nurse who helped children, by a children's nurse in Maine, in the United States. Bangor, Maine, to be precise. And her daughter married a gentleman who decided to market this, like to make and market this concoction, this patent medicine, and sell it all over the United States and then later in the UK. Now, patent medicines were very popular in the late 19th, early 20th century, and they essentially just meant over-the-counter medicines that were marketed in things like ladies' journals and, other magazines, newspapers and such. And the marketing for Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup was fantastic. I'll put up some pictures here. But basically, it portrayed this idyllic, mother-child relationship. And the plan was that this syrup would solve all sorts of ailments in babies and toddlers. And in particular, it helped with teething, so it soothed them, colic, gas, and diarrhea. And it was actually effective in many of these things because the two main ingredients in Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup were morphine and alcohol. And anyone in the health field knows that morphine causes constipation. And so the morphine in the drug, helped with the diarrhea. It also soothed them because it essentially knocked them out. And in many cases, it knocked them out so well that the babies died. So another opiate that was given in the 19th century was called laudanum. And if you ever, laudanum is very big in, they talk a lot about it in like Regency romance novels. I used to read a lot of Regency romance novels, and laudanum is in there. I think it might be in Jane Austen books, but laudanum was a pretty common sedative for, and like calming agent for, in the 19th century. And you weren't supposed to give babies, according to medical, whatever, in the 19th century, you weren't supposed to give babies more than 2 or 3 drops of laudanum. The dosing for this syrup for a 6-month-old and up was a teaspoon, which was about the same opium as is in 20 drops of laudanum. So 6-month-old babies were getting 10 times more opium than was suggested for this other medicine that had been, that was in use at the time. That's not to talk about the alcohol base. So it was essentially morphine suspended in an alcohol base that you're giving to tiny children. The interesting thing to me is that this magazine came out in 1905. In 1906, the Food and Drug Administration began requiring drug companies, anyone who was advertising and selling and producing medicinal substances, they had to start listing their active ingredients. And so that included Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. So that was in 1906. In 1906, they have this new law that you have to talk about your active ingredients. In 1911, there was a journalist who essentially was writing newspaper column after newspaper column about these quack medicines and the damage that they're doing to children. And this one was one of the most damaging and came up a lot. So eventually they removed the morphine from the recipe. And so it was just like alcohol and herbs. And not long after that, they had to remove the word soothing from the brand name. So then it just became Mrs. Winslow's syrup. And they stopped producing it in the 1930s. However, this medicine killed thousands and thousands of babies throughout the United States and the UK. And we don't know how many children it killed, because in many cases, the parents didn't attribute the death to the syrup, because they would go to sleep and stop breathing, and then they would, and they would die. But in many cases, they'd find out in the postmortem that there was morphine in the child's system. And I think the dosage, so the dosage was like 10 drops for a newborn, half a teaspoon for a 3-month-old, and 1 teaspoon 3 to 4 times a day for 6 months and up. That is like, if you're going to do 3 times a day, 1 teaspoon, that is a ton of morphine. And that is easily enough to kill a young child. In some cases, if a child had diarrhea, they were told to do it every 2 hours until the diarrhea stopped. So the dosing was way off, and it was morphine and alcohol. And so children would get like addicted to it. And it was a huge issue. The guy who patented it was Jeremiah Curtis, and it was his mother-in-law who came up with the recipe. Now, we don't have any evidence that she actually did, that there is a mother-in-law. We don't have their apparent, it's sort of legendary, it's like the story of the company. He died in the 1880s as a multimillionaire. He made a ton of money off of this. And so he didn't live to see the demise of the company, but the company did go away. And like I said, they stopped producing the syrup in the 1930s. So that is my little history lesson for you today about Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. Early medicine is definitely late 19th, early 20th century medicine is fascinating to me, because it's a time when people become really obsessed with science and modernity in a way that they weren't before. And so they are playing with chemicals, but they don't know quite what they do yet. And so they're just like trying them out on people. And there are no regulations. So like no one knows what's going on with these concoctions. And that's why you get radium in things. That's why you get x-rays without protection. That's why you get morphine and alcohol in a baby medicine. That's why Coca-Cola has cocaine in it for a little while, right? Like they're just playing around with these different chemicals without thinking about without knowing the consequences and without worrying about the consequences. And it's not until you get federal regulations and different regulations that they have to start like actually thinking about whether it's a good idea to overdose tiny children on morphine. And just a little factoid, we often call people who sell these questionable medical techniques snake oil salesmen. And this comes from, in the West, people would sell snake oil, usually made from like rattlesnakes, in like bottles, and it would be literal snake oil. So the fun fact though is that the idea of snake oil comes to the West from China. And in China, they would take water snakes and the oil from water snakes and use that as medicine. These snakes were high in omega fatty acids. So it was essentially like taking fish oil because they had these high omega fatty acids. And fish oil is one of those things that is actually really helpful. Like it helps, taking fish oil tablets actually scientifically helps you a lot. So the snake oil that came over from China was actually beneficial for a healthy diet, right? It was like fish oil. But then the snake oil salesman realized how popular and that the snake oil was from China and started making their own out of Western snakes, which were not water snakes. And then it just became a snake oil salesman. So there's your little medical history factoid of the day. I think that's all I have. It just started raining, so it got really dark out. And my winners, please contact me. I would love to send these patterns out to you. And thank you all so much for the love for this pattern. I was a little bit worried that people would not enjoy it as much, but it seems like everyone's really digging it, and that makes me happy. So I'm going to go. It just started raining, and I don't have an umbrella out here. So I'm going to go run to the house and edit this and put it up. And I will see you on Tuesday or Wednesday for I'm going to do basically like an embroidery stitch along of the last section of my Embroidery 101 class, where I talk about combining stitches in interesting ways to make larger pictures. So once again, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week. Please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye. Bye.